So the Gold Cup is over for the U.S. men's national team. I think it is for the Soccer OG. Do you guys want me to record a show after the Sunday final between Mexico and Panama? Not all at once, please. Everyone, relax. No? Is that a no? I'll consider it. But it's over, right? And maybe it's not a massive surprise. I had a lot of friends in the gambling circles who were saying, I'm going to take Panama because they saw USA as an overvalued proposition on the gambling side. Because they've been looking at the way this game is played out, and I had 3 different people told me that they're going to bet considerable amounts on Panama. So this shouldn't have been a big surprise. But it's obviously, is it really disappointing? I don't know. I mean, I was upset for a bit, and I was like, because we're going to get to the points about this Gold Cup. And there's 2 major points. There's 2 major points that we will discuss here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. The plan is available on Thursday. I am going to have a Soccer OG podcast where I'll talk to Marcelo Balboa, who called the USA game, and I'll talk to Rodolfo Londeros, who is part of the broadcast team, who called the Mexico game. We'll talk about how they fared, one moving on to the final, and one going home, which is a relief. That's one of the big stories here. This is a long tournament, right? And like and subscribe is here. Keep it coming. We're going to have a lot of great videos. We're heading into a new soccer season. Christian Pulisic news, a lot of stuff that we can still look back and exchange thoughts. Leave a comment. I'd love to have a conversation with you. All right, so the big overarching topic here is what becomes of the Gold Cup? I mean, it is a pretty dead tournament, and this is coming from someone who began his career covering the Gold Cup. This is very special to me. When I first started, I was one of like 800 people at the Coliseum to watch the Canada-Colombia final in 2000 in horrible weather. I got to call the 2005 final, the 2007 final, 2009 final. I called these tournaments with Fox repeatedly, and I loved it. It had some memories that you could hold up against everything. But things have changed, obviously, in just in recent years with the Nations League, and we've talked about it. And I would hate if the Gold Cup wasn't there, but the sport is changing very quickly. And in a perfect world, the United States, Mexico, and some of CONCACAF teams up with CONMEBOL. We have the Copa America next year. The hope is that's not a one and done. I don't see it being a one and done. I see relationships being built with South America, because South America and North America, the top parts of it, Argentina, Brazil, USA, Mexico, they need each other. They need each other. Their tournaments aren't good enough as is. A 10-team Copa America is kind of a bore until you get to the end. 16-team Gold Cup is just out of order. We don't need it. And look, I want to see these teams, and I enjoy it, and I want to get to Panama because I don't want to spoil their moment. I don't want to make it sound like we're crying over spilt milk, because I enjoy this tournament. I'll watch the final on Sunday. Not as invested as much, but I'm curious. I want to see Panama pull it off. I think they have a shot. But we have to wonder what becomes of the Gold Cup. To me, it feels like it's closer to the extinction list than not. It's like nobody wants it. You talk to these MLS coaches, they're like, oh, they lose their players for 3 weeks a month, the middle of the season. I mean, it's brutal. And this is not just USA players, because there's players obviously from Panama and Honduras and Guatemala and Canada, Jamaica, that play on MLS, Mexico. And that's a huge ordeal. You're like, oh, what are we doing this about? Because it's not an A-team tournament. I mean, Mexico kind of played an A-team by necessity because their program needs a boost. Panama's playing their A-team because they felt it's within reach. The USA did not. Most countries did, but you can see it's just not sustainable. So I don't want the Gold Cup to go, but I'm still excited about it, but never less excited. I get excited about soccer way more than I would like to. But things are changing. They're changing everywhere. I mean, everything's adjusting. And we're going to see that with relationships with the Club World Cup. FIFA's taking a bigger piece. There's real estate there, and everyone wants to take a piece of it, right? So there's a great opportunity for CONMEBOL, and CONCACAF for that matter, to get stronger together, like King Lear would say. Together we can't be broken. I don't know if that's the actual Shakespeare verse, but I don't want to keep beating this to death. But that's the big draw for me. Just about the team a little bit. I know a lot of people said we should have sent the kids, and this is a man's tournament, if anything else. It may not be the most talented men's tournament, but we saw Panama. I mean, they were, this was a group of dudes. So, sending the kids is not going to help this tournament. I don't think it's going to help them. It's going to hurt them more than they are. Jalen Neal didn't play in this game because he really struggled in the quarterfinals. Brian Reynolds struggled in the last 2 games. Cade Cowell started. Although he shows signs of light, you can still see he's a kid. Same with Busio. It's to think if we would bring in the under-20 team with a few other players sprinkled in like Busio and Sands, would that have done better? No, I truly believe it would not have. And it could have damaged these guys a little bit because you see it there. This was, people are going to get upset about the selections. And I heard about it a lot. I go, why are you bringing these same old players? And I will start with Aaron Long, Christian Roldan, Jordan Morris, DeAndre Yedlin. That's pretty much it. That was the old guard. You have 4 players. Who are you going to replace them with? I would throw Matt Miazga in there because Matt Miazga, I want to say Long, Roldan, Morris, and Yedlin, I think their international careers are pretty much over. They're not coming back in September, October, November. Maybe 1 or 2 at a game here and there. But most of them, it's probably over. I would put Miazga in there too because he's just... He's just a frustrating player to watch. And I do not have confidence in him. I know a lot of people go after Aaron Long. Again, this is it for Aaron Long. But he at least made some defensive play. Miazga, at least, to me, scratches my head. He's a child out there. He's just a liability. So I don't want to see him either. I don't want to see the other guys. I'm with you on that. But it wasn't a lot, right? This was a young team. It was Ferreira, was 21, and Zendejas, Cal, Busio, James Sands is 22. Miles Robbins, who's a little older, Tolkien, Reynolds. This was a young team. So I don't want to hear about, we should have committed more to youth. We really did. We could have gone a little bit more. And we could have brought some, it would have been great to see guys like Taylor Booth or Josh Sargent on this team, but that's just not the way it is. The fact they can't come leaves you very frustrated about where this tournament can go. So that group of, I know people don't want to, you're not going to have MLS players on the main national team. Jesus Ferreira is not going to be an MLS player much longer. And those other guys aren't going to feature in here. The ones that I told you, they're 28, 29 or older. This is probably it. And we should thank them for their service and what they've been able to do. This was a young team. And we saw youth kind of suffer in these situations, which is not a tenable situation. But where do we lose the Gold Cup as an opportunity to usher in these players? I don't know. Again, I don't want to be upset about this because it shouldn't bother any of us. We found some nice pieces. We saw Cade Cowell in that role. I think James Sands is another. We saw a revival for Gianluca Busio. Jesus Ferreira, I don't want to sit here and argue about it. You've got to get used to the fact this kid has got talent and skills. He was nonstop these last 2 games. He moves into dangerous areas. He's trying to get his teammates involved, and he had a beautiful goal. The goals he scored here are beautiful. And I know you're going to call him the Pirate of the Caribbean, and by the way, it would be accurate because if you look at Panama on the map, it has its northern border, because it shapes in like this. It's on the Caribbean. So it applies again for Jesus Ferreira. But Jesus Ferreira is a keeper. I don't know where he fits in there, but I can't sit here and argue about what his shortcomings are. Because he kept this thing afloat. He did. Even in games he didn't score, he was good. He was good against Jamaica. He held his own and did enough positive things against Canada. And then he scored the goal, and he was, he was not perfect. But, I would compare it. I know people, my guy Derek Ritchie went viral with the take because Alexi Lalas put Jesus Ferreira at number 2 in the pecking order. Jesus Ferreira shouldn't be number 2 in the pecking order, but he shouldn't be lower than 4th or 5th. This is the truth. We're saying Ricardo Pepi's number 2. Ricardo Pepi's had a lot of issues and flaws with his career. He had a good run at Groningen, and it got him a contract for PSV. But we've got to see what he does at PSV to anoint him as somebody who could be the number 2 in the pecking order. I'm not saying Ferreira's up there, but Ricardo Pepi hasn't done it. And look, Folarin Balogun has done it just based on his club game. I'm not saying he shouldn't be number 1. I'm not saying Ricardo Pepi shouldn't be number 2. But let's see how it looks. Jesus Ferreira, because of the amount of times he's been called in, we have a body of work with the U.S. men's national team. And that's where you put him up there. Do we put Josh Sargent ahead of him? Probably. But Josh Sargent needs to get reps. You don't put Haji Wright or Jordan Pefok ahead of him. You don't. He is going to be in the mix for that. So there you go. I'm not going to dwell too much more on that. But you take some positives. The real concern is the Gold Cup. Hats off to Panama. I hope they win it. I think they are going to win it. This is a team heading into the ascendancy, got a good coach. They have some older guys that they rely on, but generally you have guys mid-20s to late 20s. Coco Carrasquilla, one of the best players in the tournament. Barcenas has been around. He's been good. Andres Andrade is a new one. Orlando Mosquera, the goalkeeper, made a couple of nice stops there in the shootout. He's a young goalie. Fidel Escobar, Eric Davis. They're all kind of... Ismael Diaz, who scored that hat trick against Qatar. They beat Qatar, and then they were much better than the U.S., right? This game shouldn't have gone to extra time. Panama should have won it. They were much better. They were bullying the U.S. My favorite Panamanian player is Harold Cummings, or as you pronounce it in Panama, Harold Cummings. ¿Qué pasa, Harold Cummings? I believe he plays in Bolivia. It's a good team. They're going to be a World Cup team in 2026. They deserve it. They made the Nations League semis. So that's a story. Let's applaud Panama. They deserve it, right? They deserve it. There's all that's there. We move forward. We have U.S. games in September, October, November. Did want to say something about Snapdragon Stadium because they're going to get an MLS team there, so it's going to get a lot of usage. The game started early, and you immediately saw the problem. There's no roof there. And as a fan, you're watching that, you're like, that looks really uncomfortable. Look, if they have their MLS team, San Diego Wave, the NWSL team, they play a lot of day games. That's got to be tough. Those have got to be night games there. Especially if you assume it's going to get pretty hot in San Diego. Although San Diego doesn't get terribly hot compared to other places in America. Because of the topography and because of the sea layer, you would hope. Although that stadium's a little further inland. So, that's a beautiful, beautiful location. But, the roof, I wish there was a roof. But that's very expensive. And it is what it is. We'll get more usage. Panama, Mexico, very good. Luis Chavez, another incredible goal. He scored that great free kick goal in the World Cup. He scores another great free kick there. Not a lot of fans turning out in Las Vegas to see Mexico, so there's a malaise there too. So when they play Panama and SoFi, my guess it's going to be pretty empty too. It's not going to be 70,000 Mexicans cheering on El Tri. It's not. Because of the opponent and because of what we saw at the semis. They get it. Those are fans. We know they're not beating the best teams. And that just goes back to the previous point. So there we have it. I enjoyed the Gold Cup. I hope you did. We got some time together. But it could be a tournament on life support. The Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We'll be back Sunday to talk maybe the final about something else. Check the podcast. It's going to be a good one this week.